Everybody for joining us this morning. Of course, joining us is Jerry Colangelo, who's been the managing director of USA Basketball since 2005. In that period of time, with the win over Iran, he saw the USA national team earn its 100th win. His record as managing director is now 107, and of course, includes 3 Olympic gold medals and 2 World Cup titles. We'll just make this as kind of a free form like the other ones, and feel free to go ahead and ask questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Jerry, I was thinking about this morning. When you took over in 2005 and things weren't going well for Team USA, and you built this program that obviously won all those games in a row and won 3 gold medals. Did you think that towards the end of your tenure that it would become more difficult? Like, did you expect this to get harder?
Just like there are runs in every basketball game that's played, there are cycles in everything you do in terms of business, in terms of team building, etc. And so I think we rode the crest early on with commitments from players, top players who bought in to everything we were, selling at the time. And the reality is we live in a different world than it was 15, 16 years ago. I use this analogy, players, whether it's admitted or not, money and careers and things like that are of the utmost importance, even more so today than then. I think the money has probably tripled or more in the last 15 years. And so, when someone makes a commitment, it's like looking at the list of people that are not here. There's a story behind each one of them, some of which we can talk about and some of which you really shouldn't talk about because that's their private business. And so all we can do is make the opportunity available to each and every one that we have interest in. And when we start talking about personnel, it doesn't matter who the staff is. My methodology is it's a combined group decision on players. That's the only way it should be, and that's the only way I've ever done it. So ultimately, I'm charged with the responsibility, but I'll take all the input from all of the people who are on the firing line to make the decisions that we have made in the past, and I'm sure it's going to be that way in the future. It may even be more challenging in the future, not knowing what how rules are going to be, etc. But I look at some of the players, and I can't be specific for obvious reasons, but there were a few players whose teams that just didn't want them to play. They were looking at it from their own perspective, their team perspective. I get it. I understand that. And so that eliminated some of those people. Contracts play a role. All of those things play a role, but that's not any excuse. I would say to you that we're still blessed with an awful lot of talent in this country. Just like this roster has an awful lot of talent. I was looking at the 2016 roster this past week and trying to make a comparison. What we had then and what we have now. 4 years takes a big difference. Names are names. Years take their toll also. And so I look at our roster, and I believe this, that if we had everyone in training camp at one time and we were working collectively toward all our goals and objectives, we would have been much further along. But the way this thing was pieced together, you do what you have to do. I mean, certainly you can focus on the 3 who were in the finals this year. They make a major difference on this roster. Mm-hmm. Major difference. And you could see how all 3 of them are getting a lot of playing time and will continue to do so. So, the blowout over Iran, the most important thing about that is we were finally doing some things collectively that we've been trying to push and enforce in terms of offense and even defense. So we think we're getting better every day. And so this thing is a long way from being over. And, the next piece of business is Saturday in terms of check. You look at the standings, you look at the matchups, you see who you might be playing beyond that. But it's all speculation at this point. We should focus only on ourselves and getting better each day. If we do that, I think we can accomplish our goal and objective. I really believe that. Why is it such a phenomenon that players, international players who have, good careers in the NBA, but when they play for their country, they're elevated. They really are. And that's been true forever. Is it just national pride? Is it because there's more focus on them in the international game? Probably. Both of those points probably have some impact. But again, each team has been different. Every team, not only the Olympic teams, but the World Cup and World Championship teams. And we've used a lot of different players who have made contributions. And so I think we should start with, I'm thankful for the guys who have made commitments and who are here and are committed to give their very best, and everyone wants to win it to a man.
Like you had a lot on your mind there. So you've made it pretty clear about the roster turnover and lack of commitments from some of the guys who you would consider top line. But with all these losses in the last 2 summers, is there any responsibility that falls to the coaching staff or the roster, the players who are here? Like what is their culpability in, what is an unprecedented string of losses for Team USA basketball?
Well, in 19, when we were putting the team together for the World Cup, we had commitments that were made, and then those who decided not to. We had a couple of injuries once we were together, and we couldn't replace anyone. Kuzma was hurt.
Tatum.
Who? Tatum. And
Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart was hurt too. So, when 2 or 3 of your guys cannot perform and you don't have your full roster as you visualized it, it's challenging. So to your question, no, I'll say this. I can only judge what I see and what I know as it relates to staff. This staff is as hardworking as you can ask for. Trust me. Pop is a very committed guy. He's very focused. And he's been, he feels he's got some things he wants to get accomplished here. He's got a track record in terms of USA basketball that he would like to see rectified. And so a lot at stake for him. In terms of our total staff, I think they're terrific guys, great basketball guys. I have great trust in them. I don't think they're responsible for anything that's happened. I really don't.
Jerry, if I could ask you,
Yeah.
if I had told you in 2005, I know we're in the middle of the Olympics here, but if I had told you in 2005 when you took this job with where the program was, even if I had told you in 2006 when we were here,
Yeah.
you would win the next 3 gold medals and that you would push the world back, no matter where the world is now, you guys definitely pushed it back a little bit. Would you have considered that the type of job that where your expectations were, the way this has gone with where the program was when you took it over?
Brian, I didn't have a game plan when I did take it over that I would be here for whatever length of period of time. That was for others to decide on. I figured it'd be a couple, for sure, like 08 and 12. Just to refresh your memory as it relates to 16, in Rio, Coach K absolutely said that was it for him. He was going to be finished. And my intent was probably to step down also at that time. I thought it would be appropriate for us to both leave at the same time. When I met with Pop, because he was my pick and choice to be the next guy, he said he wanted to think about it overnight. He did, and he called back and he says, "I'll do it if you want me to do it, but I have one thing I need from you." I said, "What's that?" He says, "I need you to stay." That not forced me, but because of my loyalty to the program, to USA Basketball, when someone says, "We want you here because we need you here," I'm going to do it. And so I did. I committed to staying on for this last run. And I'm glad I did. When I look back on it, I have no control over, let's put it this way. I can have a lot of input into the eventual outcome, but I can't control it. There are so many variables that are involved. And so when you talk about people who respond to pressure one way or the other, I've always been very competitive. I've always been willing to take a shot. And so were going to be more challenges. I knew it was going to be more difficult, but I didn't intend to even be here when you think about it. And I'm doing the best I can to finish as strong as I personally can, not just for me. This is about the program. I want the USA Basketball program to be looked upon the way it has been looked upon for a number of years in a very favorable position. But nothing's ever changed about my respect for the international game and the players that come from it. And as evidenced by the number of international players in the NBA today, it's amazing the impact that they've had. There's a lot of really good players. And it all started in '92 with the Dream Team. For some reason, that exposed the game in a way it never had been done before. And players started really dreaming about playing international players, about making it to the NBA. And look at all the guys who did and were really, really great players. So if I were to be asked, how do you want this to end? I want another gold medal for all the reasons I said so. And then I would feel totally fulfilled over my time with USA Basketball.
Hey, Jerry, it's Tim Reynolds. Good morning.
Hey, Tim.
Jerry, Jay Wright yesterday, and I think he was maybe 50% tongue-in-cheek when he said it, but he was asked by, I think, Mike Finger from San Antonio about how is Pop finding wine here. We all know it's very tough here. This is not the Olympics anybody would sign up for. This is not the time in the world anybody would sign up for, obviously. What are you guys doing behind the scenes to try to enjoy this in a time when enjoying anything is pretty difficult?
Well, you hit on something, because you better have good people. That's number one, and people who can get along with one another and respect each other. I think about all the things that have been affected this run, these last few years with COVID, and the impact it had on our game, on the NBA, the compactness of the two seasons back to back, the bubble, and on and on. And now players are being not asked, those who were invited, and those who, a lot of them called me and wanted to play, and then later, for whatever reason, said, I'm not so sure. I can understand it. I mean, there's been a lot of things going on. So we've had to adjust. I mean, how would you like to get a group of guys coming to Japan and tell them they're going to be in another bubble, basically, because that's the way it is? That's really challenging. So thank goodness we have good people, players, coaches. What do? We're in the coaches' meeting space most of the time, talking. Coaches love to talk about the game and drawing plays and so on and so forth, and so much preparation. We watch all kinds of videotape, and we bring back stuff that You forgot that you even knew. So yeah, it's challenging when you can't even go out the door, except to go to practice and to a game. It's really hard. And I've been to Japan, I think 6 times. In 75 and 76, I coached an NBA All-Star team here in Japan against an ABA All-Star team. And it was the first time they had seen professional players here. That was a great experience because you got a chance to enjoy the culture, the food, the people. That was twice. And then in 93, I brought the Suns in Utah here. It was the first time it was an NBA game played on foreign soil. That's when we had Barkley and they had Stockton and Malone, etc. That was another great trip. I came here to look at technology when I was in baseball as we were building a stadium because this was where you had to come. You know, but I'll tell you, what really affected me is the game against Greece when we lost in 06 in the same building, in the same town, in the same country. When I walked in there the other day, and I was standing at the corner of the floor where turned back the clock to 06 when Coach K was walking off the floor after we had lost. And he looked up at me, and I was just a couple of rows away, and he was apologizing to me for the loss. And I said, Coach, come on, you don't have to apologize to me. It's a setback, but we're going to get something out of this. We're going to do that. And so, you know, you have to live with the loss. That loss to Greece affected, he said it was the worst loss of his career in basketball. And I think it really did enhance our future because we were emboldened, if you will, not to let that happen again. And it didn't until what's happened here these last couple of, tournaments. The one in 19, we already discussed that. And of course, what transpired here this year. Watching Nigeria, if you saw the game against USA, they made 23s in a game. 23s. Now they haven't won since, here since they got to Tokyo. They've come a long way as a country, as a program. They had been practicing for about 5 weeks before we played them, and we had about 3 days of a not even complete roster. So again, those are the cards that you're dealt. The one thing I won't do or subscribe to is this. It's not that black and white. There's a lot of gray area in everything we're talking about, a lot of variables. If all things were equal, if we all had the same time to practice, we all had our rosters set, blah, 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 I don't think we'd be having this discussion. I don't. But that's not the case. So we're going to do everything we can to overcome it now.
So Jerry, all right, there's a couple of things here. One, you could still win a gold medal.
Absolutely.
The guys you have here, they can take you all the way and win.
Yes.
And then we've also spent 20 minutes talking about, again, the challenges of putting this roster together. But within the context, have there been mistakes made in roster construction? Because there are some guys, at least as far as we thought, who wanted to play and were not asked. And then you have situations like with Kevin Love this year, or Plumlee and Derek White the year before, like guys that just couldn't or didn't help. So the question is, were there mistakes made within that context in roster construction?
Well, let's be specific. You ask me about someone and I'll give you my response.
Kevin
Love. I didn't think Kevin Love was going to play. I wasn't even sure he had much left to play. He reached out to us and said he was in shape. He said he felt he owed us one. And on the basis of that, we're looking at someone with international experience who at one time was a heck of a rebounder and could still shoot the ball, being like a 12th man on a roster. Well, it didn't work out. He wasn't in shape. and he was way behind, as it turned out. So you move on. Call it a mistake, call it giving someone an opportunity, someone who had earned some equity with us. I've always believed in that. Guys who play for us get a little plus sign, but let's go to someone else.
Mason.
If you look at the depth chart on bigs in our country, it's very slim. For the most part, the best bigs in the NBA are all international players. So the depth chart, based on who was available, who wasn't injured, who didn't have a contract situation, that's where we were on the depth chart. So it wasn't that our people felt that he was so much better than other names that you might mention. That's where we were.
Okay. Trae Young, like, this is somebody who hasn't been on the roster, but I mean, at least on Twitter, he makes it pretty clear that he's wanted to play twice and he can't get on the team. So what about him?
Well, I'm happy that he wants to play for USA Basketball. We had him in one of our camps. We know him in USA Basketball. He's done really well in the NBA, but predicated on what we felt we needed, he didn't fit the bill this time around. He's a young player. He has a future with USA Basketball, but it was the opinion of our staff that it wasn't now. It's for others to make the declaration, you made a mistake, or that was a mistake in retrospect. If we win, there weren't any mistakes.
Right.
If we lose, we're going to point out that it'll be pointed out that we made a lot of mistakes, and we'll have to respond to it.
Right. And just to be clear, again, as I said at the top, like, I know you could still win, but just looking over the last, 2 years to this point, I think some of these are fair. I guess I could ask about Derek from 2019, but I mean, the point is what it is. I mean,
let me just say this. I think people are entitled to opinions. And all of you guys on this call have been around the game. You know the game. You know the people within the game. So this is meant to say the following. Same holds true for, I believe, our staff. They're good basketball people. They get it. They understand. They know who can play, who can't play. But you are not privy to all of the info that we have on the things that I've mentioned, the variables.
for sure.
And so that's what we have to claim for ourselves, to protect the players more than anything else.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
To that end, I'm sorry, Brian. To that end, does it seem thankless now, almost? If you win, you're at that point, and you've been here really since 92. If you win, you're supposed to. And if you lose, the world fell in. Does it almost seem like a thankless proposition when you are USA Basketball at this point?
All right. So here's one of my favorite sayings about my life, my career, and life in general. The climb up the ladder is a lot more enjoyable than the perceived arrival. Because once you're perceived as having arrived, you're a target. And it's pretty easy for people to take shots. That's just the way it goes. If it's too hot for people in that position, then get out. And so I feel very comfortable with the process, what's gone on over these years since 2005, what we've accomplished. That's a lot of gold medals, not just the Olympics, but the Worlds, etc. And the program that was built, the culture that was put in place, all of those things are very positive for the future of USA Basketball. And I've made this comment. It's one thing to represent your team on a local basis, your city, your state, your country. But when you are asked to represent your country on the international stage, that's huge. That is really big, and something I've always taken very, very seriously. So if we win, that's going to put to rest a lot of the things that have been said, doom and gloom. If we don't win, people will have their opportunity to take shots at anyone and as much as they wish to for whatever reasons they choose. I'm the one that has to look in the mirror and know that I give my best. And I'll tell you in advance, the answer is yes. And I believe we're going to win. And if we win, then we can have a good night.
Jerry, a little non-basketball question. It seemed like for a lot of years when you did this, you guys had a nice relationship with the White House. President Bush came to a game in China. President Obama came to a game in Washington. I don't think the basketball community in general had a great relationship with the White House the last couple of years. Did it go away a little bit for USA Basketball? And have you seen signs, if it did, that it can come back now at all?
Look, anything can change for the better or for the worse. But the whole conversation on the political scene is one that is best left apart from us. It just is. I mean, we live in a divided country today. 50% believe one thing, 50% believe another. What we've told our players when we got together for training camp is, let's talk about why we're here. We're here to represent our country on a basketball court and do it with class and with dignity and stay away from politics, because that's not going to serve anyone at all. And it's been that way, fortunately, with our staff, with our players. The focus has been on the game. And, the rest of it we'll have to deal with. But politics is not part of it. I'd like it separated, politics and the game, period.
Pop and Steve, I think, like to talk about politics, at least with us in the U.S. Did you ever talk to them about that? Let's not do that during these few weeks.
Yes, everyone knows how I feel about the subject, and you can judge for yourself by what people have said or not said.
Jerry, it's a very strange situation that we're in with Pop and Steve having to do drafts. In fact, while we've been talking, they both made picks. Spurs made a off the wall pick for a lot of people. How have they been able to balance that while you're in the midst of this? It's a completely unprecedented situation.
Well, I just left the room to come down and do this Zoom call and watch the first 5 or 6 picks. And of course, I saw the Golden State pick, and, they're on their phones. They're speaking to their people about, at the last second situations and trying to make deals and so on and so forth. Brought back a lot of memories for me, but they're doing a great job. They have good people on their staffs. And so it's in good hands in both cases.
Jerry, Steve Goldberg with FIBA. You were talking about the importance of, the international game and representing the country to yourself. I just did a piece on Josh Okogie and how he's trying to help build a basketball culture for Nigeria. I was wondering if you could remark on, from what you've seen, as far as for those players who have represented the U.S. in Olympic or FIBA World Cup play, do you feel that they have built a different bond between them the same way that the Aussies and the French and the Spaniards have for representing their national teams?
Well, Nigeria is kind of new in the game when you think about it.
Right.
The other countries you mentioned have quite a history of building their culture and building their programs. But they're great programs to look at. Argentina and Spain, you can add to that group. And it's really amazing, I believe, how far some of these programs have come. The Nigeria situation is, on the roster, I believe they have 8 or 9 NBA players. There are star players, starting 5 players necessarily, but a lot of role players. And all of a sudden, Nigeria can shoot the ball. That wasn't the case just a few years back. you can see that organization in building that culture has come a long way with Nigeria for sure.
And with the U.S. players who have represented the USA in international competition, do you find that they have a similar camaraderie because of that they might not have had just as NBA opponents?
I think so. I'm sure it varies from individual to individual, but there's, the basketball family is a small family. Even when you include the international scene, how many players are of that, ilk, if you will? So there's a mutual respect. And I would say this, the international players have earned more and more respect in recent years, and rightfully so, because they've performed.
Thank you.
Gary, one of the things we hear over and over again is the continuity on the rosters of the other teams in this tournament. And if memory serves, when you first started this, I think you asked for the same commitment, or at least a similar commitment of multiple years from the guys. And somehow we got away from that. In Grant Hill, does he need to reinstitute that? And is it even possible to do so?
Well, let me I want to say a couple things about that. By the way, some things are under your control and some things are not. When I took over, I did have some control over setting the tone. I wanted a 3-year commitment. It was for the World Championships and the Olympics in 08, 06 and 08. I needed 3-year commitments, and I got them from all the players that I spoke with, be it Carmelo, LeBron, Wade, Chris Paul, etc. We got the commitments we wanted. And we had a good format in USA Basketball and FIBA, where we had competition every 2 years. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the powers that be changed the format. And they thought it was going to be a positive. And I immediately said, they may be good for the rest of the world, but it's not good for USA Basketball. We've got a system. We've got it cranked up pretty good. When you now take away, that 2-year cycle, it throws everything out of whack, because now you're asking players to play back to back under normal circumstances. The COVID stuff changed everything. Mm-hmm. But we would have played in 19 and 20. Think about that. Yep. That's not good. I don't think it was good for anyone affiliated with USA Basketball. And I was outspoken about that. But the powers that be made the change. What am I supposed to do except roll with the punches?
Is it still a worthy endeavor to try to build the team of top line NBA talent? Is there something to be said for going back to the college game or to the younger game so you can maintain that continuity and just win a different way?
Well, here's the dilemma, in my opinion. What's the college game? The top players in college are there for a year, and then they're in the NBA. So how do you build continuity with that? You can say 21 and under, or go with an age breakdown and go that direction. But I'll tell you, the other countries, they don't have the same resources, the depth, or anything like that. They're going to have the Scolas playing for them forever. Scola's still playing, and he's 41. So you see Gasol, another one. He's 41. So I'm not sure what the answer is. It's not a dilemma. It's going to be something to talk through and argue over as we go forward. Who knows if the format's going to stay the same? Maybe it's going to be revisited.
We got time for a couple more questions if there are any.
Jerry, because you've had literally like every job there is in the game, from coach, GM, owner, franchises are worth billions now. We're not too far away from guys making 50 million in the NBA. Probably we're not too far away from guys making 60 million in the NBA. Do you, from all that you've seen in a lifetime in this game, do you worry if there's a ceiling? Do you worry if there's a bubble at some point? Can the growth of this game from a financial standpoint just continue forever and ever and ever?
Tim, that's an argument that people have made forever, and that is this can't go on. Salaries can't continue to go up. Ticket pricing cannot continue to go up. Forever, whatever the reason being, it has. I mean, this is just on a personal note. You mentioned all the things I am so thankful and I feel blessed that I came along when I did and had all those experiences going back to the mid 60s with the birth of the Bulls. And I was able to not only survive, but do very well in a very competitive business for 50 years. I'm not so sure how I would do in today's world or game if I were starting today. It's a different game. It's a different breed of people. It's a different breed of ownership. And with that, I'm just saying to you, I'm going to be able to look back on my life and my career in the game, which I owe everything to, and say it was a hell of a trip. And I'm very thankful for all of it, good, bad, and indifferent.